I'm Sarah St. John, and today we have Nick Nahlbach, who is a expert in AI for podcasters. Welcome to the community.
Thank you, Sarah. I don't know if I'd call myself next, but I do appreciate it. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you and hopefully provide some value to your community and shed a little light on AI, especially for podcasters.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with I'm kind of curious, like how you got into AI specifically for podcasters.
So, initially, this was probably a year or two before ChatGPT like blew everyone's minds. I was playing with different AI tools that were out there. I think I was going to AppSumo and I was just like scooping up all these different little AI tools that were existing. And the whole reason I was doing it was because I wanted to speed up my processes. I really like systemizing things that I do and developing the most efficient process possible. And I was like, okay, this might help get me there. And then ChatGPT came out and it was like, holy cow. And Mark Ronick and he's my business partner in Next Gen Podcaster, which is the community that we have. We were like, people need to know about this. It's like, podcasters can use this. And no one's talking about it right now. Everyone's talking about it for all this other stuff and like just having fun conversations with it. But this can actually be a helpful tool for podcasters. Like, we need to start spreading the word. And since then, we just kind of like dove all in on everything AI. Like, for months, we'd be like finding new AI tools and like, dude, you got to go check this out. Hey, you got to go check this one out now. Like, this is insane. Like, so many different products came out so quickly to now you can't even keep up with it at this point. But yeah, we just kind of went full nerd into the AI space, and it's just been a blast.
So, like, I'm curious, what tools do you mainly use? I mean, you mentioned ChatGPT. Are there any like AI tools that you like to use?
ChatGPT is a big one. I've been back and forth between ChatGPT and Gemini for a lot of different things that I do. Gemini's like Google's version of ChatGPT. And then I had come across and started using one called Perplexity AI. And now that has become almost like a daily tool for me. Like, I'll use that not even just for podcasting. I just use that as like a Google replacement. If I'm going to search for something or I'm doing research on something, I'll go to Perplexity and it does very extensive research on topics for you. And it'll
Oh,
provide you sources. Like, essentially it's scraping the entire internet looking for the answers. So you can ask it for step-by-step instructions on how to do something tech-wise, or you could have it help you write scripts or outlines for episodes or other content you want to create. But then it lists everything out and then provides sources with where it got all that information. So if you want to dig deeper into any of them, you can actually go directly to the video or the article or wherever the information is coming from. And that to me was huge game changer compared to what ChatGPT does, just because it doesn't really provide a whole lot of that citation. And that was a big, I think people got kind of upset because they would ask for sources and then ChatGPT would go make stuff up.
Oh, wow.
Like, it would
I
just
didn't
throw
realize
either
that.
broken links that look legit, but then you click on it and it goes nowhere, or it would just send you to a completely random website and like, this has nothing to do with the information you just gave me. But Perplexity has been nice.
Oh, wow. I think I've heard of that like once. I haven't actually looked into it. So, okay, so the main difference is that it gives you the citations or resources that it used to gather the information.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's the way that I kind of look at them is like ChatGPT and Gemini I'll use for generating content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll use that for brainstorming, I'll use that for outlines and titles and that kind of thing. And then Perplexity I use when I want like facts. Like, give me factual
Mm.
information that I can then use. And sometimes it's taking factual information from Perplexity and bringing it over into ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, here's some information that I want you to help expand on for me to help me come up with an outline for an episode or a video that I want to create." That's just like one example of
Yeah.
combining multiple tools, I guess, because there's so many out there, and I don't think one tool can really do them all. So
Mm-hmm.
it does take a little bit of playing and finding the right stack of AI tools, I think, to really become more efficient.
Yeah. So I've been using a new tool. Are you familiar with Dan Henry? He's an online entrepreneur.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, he just came out with a new tool that's not like that common or well known yet called Artemo. And so I've been using that, but like the way it works is it already has prompts in it.
Mm.
And so like you answer specific prompts. But what I've been doing is like if it'll have a prompt question that like I don't want to take the time to think about or whatever, then I'll go to ChatGPT and say the prompt question, have it answer it. Then I'll put that answer into the prompt and then it generates, whatever. And they can do all kinds of things. It's specifically for like online business owners and stuff, but it's it's a little bit pricey. It's like
Is it like a marketing type thing? Like, does that help come up with like copy and that kind of stuff, or what
yes.
exactly does it like give you? I guess.
Yeah, it does ad copy, press releases, sales scripts, email sequences, website copy, like all kinds of stuff. And so the question like VSLs, like video sales letter, like whatever that
Mm.
hook story offer, hook value, whatever. So the questions it asks you are to help it formulate in the, you know, but like sometimes I don't want to like I'll tell ChatGPT like what my business is and all this stuff and like to answer it in accordance with that. But anyway, so I've been combining different softwares as well.
See, and so this might be going a little bit too down the technical side, but what is interesting about tools like that, like they can be very helpful because they kind of take care of a lot of the work for you. In many cases, all that is like a wrapper around ChatGPT. Like they're
Mm,
essentially feeding ChatGPT responses or pulling ChatGPT responses based on the information you put in. They've
mm,
just already kind of pre-programmed the prompts that are going to go to ChatGPT,
ah,
and then you get the response. So they can be really helpful if you don't care to really learn how to converse with ChatGPT, like get fine tuned with it, but they can be kind of limiting. So
mhm.
I like them and then I don't like them because I want a little bit more control over the types of responses that I get.
Mm.
And you could achieve very similar results with ChatGPT with the right questions and prompts. And but a lot of the tools like that are connected to the ones that we might be more familiar with and using.
Yeah, I think it takes the guesswork out of coming up with the prompts, which is
Right.
definitely helpful. So when you talk about like chatting with ChatGPT or conversing or whatever, what kind of, I don't know, I guess tips do you have on that?
I mean, the biggest thing is to be very detailed. Like
Mm,
assume ChatGPT knows nothing. And that's usually that works well for me. And the way that I like to think about it is I feel like when we were younger and in school, we all had to go through this exercise where you were given an image and then you had to explain the steps to draw that image. Or maybe I think another example was like you have a jar of peanut butter and you have to tell the teacher the exact steps they need to take to open that jar of peanut butter
mm,
and like put the peanut butter on the bread and all that kind of stuff. And if you leave out a step, you don't know what to do. You might
mm,
be tipping the jar upside down or trying to stick the butter knife in the side of the can of peanut butter and things like that. And ChatGPT is kind of the same way. Like we have to be very detailed and specific with like first do this, then give me this, then give me this. And
mm.
usually the more background information that you can give it, like almost getting it inside of your head, the more aligned the answer is ultimately going to be because it right now it's pulling information from everywhere. It's got information about podcasting, it's got information about lawn care service, it's got information about taking care of babies. Like it has all this information and then it's just going to kind of have to guess what you actually want based on what you ask it. So if you come in, you say, I'm Sarah, I am the host of Amp My Pod, and I run this community for podcasters to help them grow their shows, and then proceed to tell it or ask it what you want. Now it's got a little bit of context and background for who you are and what you're trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
and it'll be a lot more detailed and targeted towards what you want versus just pulling some random idea out of left field.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I remember, back in elementary or whatever, like using that as an example, and the teacher would be up there with a jar of peanut butter, and you would say something like, okay, you got to put the knife in the jar. But so the lid is still on it. So they're trying to put the knife in the jar with
Right.
the lid. And you're like, no, you got to take the lid off. It's a whole thing. Yeah. I love that analogy. That's pretty good. So, like, do you use any like Cast Magic, any of those for like show note creation?
I can't remember which one it was. I used one of them early on, and I didn't like at the time how restrictive it was. So it was like you uploaded an episode and then it kind of just gave you a title, it gave you show notes, and you didn't have any input on it. I'm pretty sure that that's changed with at least Cast Magic for sure. But for the most part, I just go directly to ChatGPT and kind of set it up for the prompts that I'm going to be giving it. So, short answer, no. One thing that I do like and recommend if you are using ChatGPT, have you ever created, what the heck are they called? They're gems in Gemini. Why is it? Oh my God. They're like little bots. I got to pull it up quick. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Now with ChatGPT, the thing that I like about, Cast Magic, Capshow, any of those, is that you bring in the audio and it creates the show notes and all that stuff based on that. But like, I don't think that's an option yet with ChatGPT to bring in audio or video and
I
like
don't think
summarize.
I don't think directly. I don't think you can
Mhm.
drop an audio file in there.
Oh,
What I have done is taken like a transcript. So like you're
okay.
using Descript here.
Yeah.
After you get done with your episode, you could take that transcript from Descript and then feed that to ChatGPT. Because that's ultimately what it would have to do anyway, is it would have to
Mhm.
transcribe that audio into text and then from
That's
the
true.
text start doing something. So I'll do that a lot with the different content that I create is I'll feed it a transcript of my video or a podcast episode or whatever. And then it already has the context of what the show is, what it's about, the conversation. And then you can start asking it questions and say, okay, hey, now I want you to create a detailed show notes page for me. And this is what I want it to consist of based on all of that information in the transcript. So now
Okay.
it's not making stuff up necessarily. It could, because it's AI, makes mistakes, but it's generally going to be about the transcript you gave it.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured it out. It's so stupid simple. They're custom GPTs, ChatGPT, GPT. So with custom GPTs, you pre-prompt it essentially. You're almost creating like a very focused AI to do a specific thing. So you could create a custom GPT that is dedicated towards creating titles for your podcast. And you basically would give it instructions as to how it's all going to work. You're going to say, I'm going to give you a transcript for an episode. I want you to sift through the information, analyze the episode, and then find the most like shocking or mind-blowing pieces from the episode that would really wow somebody. And then I want you to create a title for that podcast based around this like mind-blowing point that was made. Then every time you go to that chat, every time you go to that specific custom GPT, that's its job, is to write you podcast titles. It's not meant to really just have general conversations with it, but you can basically set up to the point where you just drop in a transcript, hit send, and then it's like, okay, I already know my job. You don't even have to prompt it. It just starts creating titles based on the transcript that you gave it. So that takes a lot of that having to set everything up and give it context and basically give it that detailed information because it's already got it and it already knows what it has to do with the information. So you can get very, like agentic or agent.
Asynchronous?
I'm thinking like agent like, where you have like different chat bots for different things, different tasks. And then it's just a matter of feeding information to each bot to have it ultimately do one for titles, one for show notes, one for a blog post, one for like you could just keep going on and on and on. But you're almost like creating employees for yourself in a way.
Oh, that's awesome. So how do you do that within ChatGPT? Like when you're in there, where would you go or how do you do?
Can we screen
Yeah,
share?
you
Can we
do the
pull it up?
screen share. Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't know about this.
This, and I'm fairly certain this is find the right. I'm fairly certain that this is like, it doesn't matter if you're on a paid version or a free version. I could be wrong. You might have to have ChatGPT Plus, but I'm fairly certain you don't. So all of these on the side kind of looks like chats. These are all different custom GPTs that I've created. And then you get into your chats. So you may have clicked over here at one time or another and seen these custom GPTs. And these are essentially ones that other people have made. So they have one that's for creating a website builder. They have an image generator. You can connect to Canva, so you can try to give it details about the Canva design that you want, and then it'll design, and then you can open that up in Canva, and it's pretty cool. But if you want to create your own, all you have to do is come up in the corner and click Create, and now it's going to start asking you what you want it to. So I'll help you build a new GPT. You say something like Make Creative, who helps generate visuals for new products. I mean, let's just say I want a GPT that create podcast titles for me based on my transcript. We'll have to see how quick or slow this actually moves for us, but essentially takes that information and then starts creating that bot.
Oh, wow.
And it'll give you like a picture and all kinds, like make it all pretty for you. But okay, let's decide on a name. How about podcast title crafter? Would you like to confirm? Sure. Sounds good. And all this can be changed in the back end within this configure tab. But now that we've named it, I'll create a profile picture for you. So it just keeps taking you like step by step through it. And then after it generates this picture, then it'll ask questions about how you want it to respond, what other kinds of details you want to give it. We'll just say, looks good. And then we'll do this part of it. Okay. So yeah, you can see it asks additional follow-up questions about the actual GPT itself. But if you come into configure here, this is where you can update the title, give it a description, and mention. So this is where we can actually get very specific. Like when you come up with your podcast titles, if there are specific things that you want to make sure that you're incorporating, or if you have a specific formula for creating your podcast titles, that's where you'd put it in here. Like when you do it, I want you to use a keyword. I want the title to be no more than 5 words long. I want, like, I don't know. You could basically build whatever parameters you want for it. And then all this just kind of additional settings. You can upload data to it. So maybe you have a process or a company procedure that you use to follow for creating titles specifically, or to upload or publish your podcast episodes. You could upload that file that outlines all those steps. ChatGPT can refer back to those processes that you employed in your company or deployed in your company, and it'll use that to its advantage later on.
That's really interesting. Okay, and then it just saves that to the side, like where I saw all those others.
Yep. So after you've done that, you have to actually come up here and click Create, and then you can say, I need the one to see it. I can share this with someone if I give them the link, or you can upload it to the GPT store where anybody can see it. So I'm not going to save this one, but in here where we have all these different ones that you can see, you can form as well. So if I search, I think Mark's got several on here. I think they're under his name.
So like added to the store, like could you even sell your prompts?
They had talked about that. I don't think they ever went anywhere with it. Like it kind of sounded like they were going to do some kind of profit sharing thing where if so many people were using it, then you'd kind of get a cut of, I don't know if it was the ChatGPT subscriptions or what it was, but they talked about it early on when this first came out, and then I hadn't heard anything really about it. So I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, here you can see these are a lot of the ones that Mark had created. Podcast trivia.
Oh, that's
Title
fun.
Maestro.
So
yeah.
Can ChatGPT create images like say, cover art or like episode specific artwork?
Yeah. And this is so I had a podcast. This is a little bit, a little bit of background information. So I had a podcast for several years, and Sarah, you were on it, obviously. 9-5 podcast.
Oh,
So that kind of sunlit that. I haven't come back
okay.
to that one for a while. It's probably been a year or two since I've done any new episodes with it, but still holding hope that I might come back to it. But since then, I had launched, it's a completely AI generated podcast. So
Oh.
the script itself is generated with AI. I find the news articles that I want covered in it because it's a news podcast. And then AI takes the articles, writes scripts. The host is AI generated. Like everything about it is AI generated. And then I
Oh,
just kind of
wow.
manage it.
Uh-huh.
One of the pieces of that, because I put them on YouTube, is I want to create new cover photos for all of
Mm-hmm.
these videos. All I do is I take the portion of the script or like one of the articles that are covered in the episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I paste it in here. So you can see this example. This is going to be the next script that I need a thumbnail for. And I, up above, gave it more specific instructions as to how I wanted it to generate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it generates this image, cleaned it up a little bit, but creates this image for me. And then I'll go usually grab this, throw it into Canva, add some things to it to make it a little bit more thumbnail-y.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you could tell it to be less detailed. Like obviously there's a lot going on here, but we could tell it to create podcast cover arts, or like you said, feed it specific information from the episode and create images and graphics for us based on what was discussed in that podcast.
Oh, wow. So where do you do that at? Just a normal chat?
Yeah. We can
Okay.
just start a brand new chat
Yeah, that'd be
here.
awesome.
And let's do it. Try to create a cover art.
Yeah.
These are usually a little tricky because it likes to create very cluttered images, but we'll see if we can prompt it and make it not as a. Let's create a podcast cover art. Can't type. Image for a podcast. Let's use My Podcast called My Podcast. And then we're going to give it some information about the show just so it has some context. The show is about teaching podcasters how to grow their podcasts and let's say grow and launch their podcasts. Well, can't type. And then we're going to give it, so this is kind of a good lesson with prompting as well. So we tell it what we're after. What is the goal that we're after? Then we're going to give it a little bit of context. And then we're going to give it the step-by-step instructions as to how we want it to do it. So for the image, I want a simple design. The title should be big and bold and can be seen from a distance. Let's just give it a little be seen distance or on small device. We'll say that. What colors do you use? Your brand colors?
Oh, for the AMI pod community, it's purple.
Use variations of purple in the cover art. I guess let's just see what it does with that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And now, can you do this in the free version or only the paid?
I'm in the free version.
Oh, wow. I guess I just haven't tried it.
I'm pretty sure everything that you can access in the paid version can now be accessed in the free version. The only limitation is the number of like back and forth conversations you can have with it. You'll hit like a cap limit after so many uses, and then it'll tell you to wait so many hours before you can come back and have a conversation with it again. And then once you go to the paid version, then you have more conversation, like back and forth conversations with it.
Nice.
So it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care that it's on a phone. Like I was looking for more of like just like a flat design.
So could you say, like, make it a flat design, not on a phone or something like that, and see what it does?
Yeah, let's try that. So say I like the colors and the big bold text, but I don't let it is on a phone-like device. I want the design on a simple flat background with no other elements picture. See if that'll make sense for it. And you'll notice, like, as you continue having conversations and as you continue to like prompt it like this, it's not going to get all this stuff. Like, I told it I liked the colors and I told it that I liked the text, but likely we're going to end up with something a little bit different. This went very
Okay.
simple.
Yeah.
A little too simple, but you kind of get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, it's called image effects, like image, and then the letter F, and then the letter X. And that is one that Google uses. And I've had a lot of success with like logos and that kind of thing. Like, a lot better than ChatGPT, I would say. This does a lot better at generating scenes and like realistic images or certain styled images, I would say. But if you're looking for like logo type stuff or brand assets, image effects is a very like, it's blown my mind how well it does with like logo type things. And I have helped some people with podcast cover art ideas through that one, just because it kind of understands more what you're going for as far as like, I want a logo, but not on a device. I don't want mock-ups. I just want the design of the logo.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That it is. It did kind of create a mock-up sort of in that first one.
Right.
Okay, I'll check that out. Image FX. So, what other, like, for podcasters specifically, what other AI tools do you use or recommend, at least on occasion?
So another one that I use quite a bit is called Minvo.
Oh, I use that too. Wait a minute. You're like, I saw you on all their socials or something, or like their videos.
Yeah, so we're actually creating content for them. Like,
Oh.
we've become their content creators. We initially, I think, I don't even remember how we ended up like syncing up with them. I think they found our community and some of the resources that we had, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to try this out." And at the time, Mark and I were using Opus Clip, and we were trying a bunch of other tools that were kind of come out. And when we started playing with Minvo, we really liked what they were doing. And at first, we kind of worked out like a little bit of a brand deal with them where like we just create content about the tool. And from there, they liked the content that we were creating. They're like, "Hey, we want to like bring you guys on to create content for us, like on a more full-time basis." We're like, "Hell yeah." Like,
Oh,
we're fans of
wow.
the product. We really like it. So yeah, we're creating a lot of content for them. But that one I really like, and I guess for anybody who's listening to this, it's essentially a tool that turns your videos into social media clips. So you upload your podcast episode, your interview, whatever it is, and then AI goes through and it tries to find the most interesting stuff, and then it cuts those pieces out of the interview for you or the podcast for you and puts it in the vertical format so it's easily shareable on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, all of those. But then it's a pretty robust editor inside of it. So you're not just left with whatever AI gives you. You can tweak captions, you can add like media and B-roll type stuff to your videos to make them a little bit more engaging, sound effects. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it once you're inside it, or you could just say, AI gave me this, I'm going to post it to social media. I really like that. That's more for people who, I guess, have a video element to their podcast. If you're audio only, it probably won't do you a whole lot of good. But I use that not even just for podcast content. I use that for other videos that I create, and that's been my favorite of the kind of social media video tools that are out there.
Yeah, that's what I use too. They had a AppSumo lifetime deal. So,
Oh yeah, nice. You got on that. That's awesome.
And weren't they one of the sponsors or something for your conference a while
Yeah.
back ago.
Yeah, so we've built a pretty solid relationship with them since we first kind of linked up, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's cool. It's cool seeing like a company that is as young as they are and
Mhm.
everything that they're doing and being able to like kind of contribute to the end product that people are using, I think is a really, I don't know, I really enjoy that. I get a lot of fun out of that. But yeah, we've found a lot of different ways to collaborate and work with them, like them sponsoring stuff for us and us creating content for them. And it's been a really
Mhm.
cool relationship.
Yeah, where are they based out of?
You know, that is a good question.
I mean, I guess are they in America?
I want
I was just curious.
I want to say that they were in Canada potentially, but I could totally
Okay.
be wrong. They may have just been in Canada at one point when I was talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just
I'm not sure. Now I'm
curious.
gonna have to ask because I feel like I should know that.
Yeah, yeah, I was just curious about that. Okay, so yeah, Minvo, that's what I also use. ChatGPT, I use Cast Magic. What about like do you use Descript at all? That's one I use quite a bit.
Honestly, no. I
Okay.
haven't. I think I downloaded it. I actually
Mhm.
just uninstalled it from my computer the other day just so I could free up space on my
Oh,
computer.
yeah.
But I never got into it. I had a pretty decent process for my editing. Like I had it pretty well down pat, and I didn't really feel like
Mhm.
changing it up. And at the time, I didn't really have the video element of it either, so I didn't
Mhm.
have that need. But now that I'm doing video, I ended up creating another like stack of tools that I use that I feel like gets me done a lot quicker. But I use Adobe for a lot of the stuff that I
Okay.
do, and there's, I don't know, presets and all kinds of different things that you can add. So when you go into the platform, it's just kind of like drag and drop edits.
Mhm.
So I liked that, but I've heard really good things about like the new AI features that Descript is using, especially for podcasters.
Yeah.
And it's always intrigued me. I just haven't had the need to pull the trigger and add another subscription to my growing list of subscriptions.
Yeah. I think the main thing I love about it is that you can, edit whether it's audio or video, you can edit out stuff based on the transcript, which for me is a lot easier than looking at like waveforms or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, like right now I'm doing a lots of ums and uhs as I'm trying to think. It can edit all that out with a drop of a click of a button.
Yeah, it is very helpful for that. And I've had
Mhm.
mixed feelings about it. Like on one hand, I really like that it is like a one click, like take care of it for me. But
Mhm.
I'm also very particular when I get into the editing process. So then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it cut out a little bit too much here, or it didn't cut out enough. And then I'm going in and I'm tweaking the stuff anyway. And it's like, I could have just cut this myself now that I'm getting this detailed into it.
Yeah, I think Descript is good for people who like aren't like if you have some kind of audio background or music background or like anything like that, like it's probably not gonna do what you want. You might like to look at the wave files or whatever they're called. But I think like for beginners or people who don't want to spend a whole bunch of time like learning something and just want to edit based on word content, it's just quick and easy.
100%. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. Yeah, it's a great, like in me saying all this stuff, I'm not taking away from Descript because it is a great product and
Yeah.
it's allowed a lot of people to do some pretty amazing stuff without
Hmm.
needing to go through all that additional training and learn how to use like a very complicated Adobe program. So
Hmm.
it's a fantastic, like it's a mind blowing tool for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then have you heard of Alitu?
Alitu. It sounds
Yeah.
really familiar, but remind me.
Do you know Colin Gray?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
he Scottish, I think, or Irish? That's his business. But it's similar because I think you can edit that way now, but I don't know, it's an easier way to edit. I actually used to do Alitu and then I switched to Descript and now I'm looking at Alitu again. So yeah, it's just
I'll have to
always.
look at it. I feel like I've looked at that one in the past. Right, it
Hmm.
came onto my computer at one point, and I don't think I ever used it.
Hmm.
But I'd seen stuff about it for sure.
Who do you use for hosting?
So the 9 5 podcast was hosted on Buzzsprout,
Okay.
and I really liked how simple and clean the whole interface was for that.
Mhm.
The AI briefing, that's the AI podcast that I'm doing. That one I just host on Spotify for podcasters. I didn't
Mhm.
feel like paying for it. The podcast was built kind of more as an experiment of what could be automated,
Mhm.
what could be AI driven. So I didn't feel like investing a ton of money into hosting
Yeah.
it. Like the most I could do for free is what I was kind of going for.
Mhm.
So between Buzzsprout and Spotify for podcasters, which to be honest, I can't stand Spotify for podcasters.
Oh, really? What about it?
It's simple. I'll give it that. But I feel like there's just no information. You get no
Oh,
analytics.
no.
Like I don't know where people are listening really. I don't know what platform. Like, are you listening on Apple Podcasts? Are you listening on
Mhm.
Spotify? Are you listening on like it just I don't know. I got a lot more detail
Mm.
from the analytics in Buzzsprout than I get out of Spotify for podcasters, and it kind of annoys me. So I
Yeah.
usually just go in there, I upload my episode, and I leave.
Yeah. Yeah, that I didn't when you were talking about how you have like an AI podcast, everything's AI generated. I didn't realize it was actually about AI. So that makes sense. Like that you would have an AI podcast that's done by AI. And I've kind of wondered like if that'll become more and more common that people will create podcasts that are entirely AI. Cause like one of the features in Descript actually is you can record your voice and say certain words or something, and then it can generate it. I forget what they call
Like
it,
a
but
clone.
yeah, to where, and the purpose of it is like if you need to correct or delete something or add something to an existing audio and you don't want to like have to go in record the whole thing over, you can just, like say you only need to add a sentence or something, then it can do that. But I'm kind of wondering if like people will use that for whole podcasts at some point.
I would imagine.
Mhm.
And so Google had just come out with they have a tool called the tool itself has been around for a while, but it's called Notebook LM, and it was originally used as like a note taking kind of app. So you can add Google Doc sources to it, you can add video sources to it, and then it's essentially shaping a chatbot for you. So it doesn't have all the other information like about stuff that you don't give it. And then you can have conversations with it based on the information that's in that source. So you could be doing research for maybe a paper that you're writing or whatever, a blog post, and just load it full of all of those sources and then ask it questions from those sources, and it'll provide answers based on the information that's there. Well, one of the features they just added was an audio podcast, essentially. So it'll take all of that source information and then it creates a host co-host podcast with a guy and a girl having a conversation about the information that's in the source. So it turns your research information into a podcast for you to digest that information as opposed to having to go read through all of it. And it sounds crazy good.
Oh, wow.
Like it's insane. And
Mm.
you don't have much control. Like you can't pick who the voices that are talking. Like it's always the same two people talking. But it sounds very good. It would be
Mm.
very difficult to determine if it was AI or human. It's got its quirks where you can kind of tell at times, but it's very close to being like unrecognizable.
Mm. Wow. That's interesting. So creating podcasts with a dialogue even in more than one person. Oh, wow.
And
So,
even to the point where like you were talking about the ums and like
mhm.
the I don't know, there's like random cadences when you're having a conversation where you kind of might pause a little bit, you kind of change the inflection of your voice, like you do all these things as you're talking and the AI like does it all. Like even to the point where it's like interrupting themselves sometimes, which is
Oh,
like
wow.
insane.
Huh. Yeah, eventually we're not even gonna be able to tell the difference, I guess.
Yeah. I and I so that conversation that question to come up a lot like could AI just replace podcasters then?
Mm.
And I don't believe that it will. And the reason I
Mhm.
don't believe it will is because majority of people that are listening to podcasts are listening for a connection.
Mm.
And one, if they figure out or they know that it's AI generated, you're immediately not going to really build much of an emotional connection with the person that's talking or the AI
Mm.
that's talking. And that was a big I put feelers out on the show before I even did it. Like I made a trailer and everything and said, hey, go check this out. Let me know what you think. And that was a big talking point for a lot of people. It
Mhm.
worked well with my show because it was like a news kind of factual, like it's kind of giving you the information in 5 minutes or less, and then you're kind of go about your business. So it's not getting into stories and sharing experiences and that kind of thing. So I think it works for very factual news related stuff, but the general person, I just don't think it'll. People want to have that connection with someone. They want to build a relationship, even if it's a one-way relationship. Kind of, they like feel connected to the host. So I do think, at least in the immediate short term, I don't see podcasters losing their jobs to AI just yet.
Yeah, yeah, that was going to be my question. What you thought the future of AI and for podcasters will be? An interesting point I heard someone make is that, right now AI is still kind of new and like, eventually maybe people will be losing their jobs to AI and all this stuff. But at a certain point, it's going to get to the point where AI becomes the norm to where having a human touch on whatever it is that you might be doing is actually more, I don't know, sought after or something.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I could definitely see that because I mean we've seen evolution, a lot of evolution over
Hmm.
I mean just our lifetime, and things change. Like it changes the way you live day to day. I feel like everything has just been kind of minor, where it's like it slowly and subtly changes the way you operate. Like think of when smartphones came out.
Mm,
Like you didn't really realize how much your life was changing until now you look back on it and you're like, holy cow, like
yeah.
I live on my phone essentially.
Mm,
And I think what makes AI so kind of like shocking is that it could do so much now.
mm,
And everyone's like, oh my God, what just happened? It's like I just got hit in the face with the phone book. Like
mm,
there's so much it can do, and how quickly it's advancing and evolving is like almost uncomprehendable. So
mhm,
it is scary because you're kind of getting into an area that's like, where are we going to be in the next year even?
mhm.
But I think, like you said, it's just going to change the way that we do things. There's always going to be jobs. I think it's just going to be a matter of what those jobs consist of.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, they're afraid of AI taking their job, and granted, it maybe and maybe even probably will at some point in the next, 5 years, but at a certain point, so it's gonna be kind of a problem, probably sooner than later, but then I think it's gonna kind of like, AI is always gonna be a thing, of course, and it's always gonna improve, but I think, in 10 maybe years from now, I think the human connection is gonna be what's back in style or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, was there anything else about AI that you wanted to cover that we haven't gone over yet?
I mean, I think one thing that I always like to tell people, and we were kind of alluding to it here near the end, is these AI tools can be really powerful, and it can get really easy to get sucked into, oh, well, I'll just feed some information to ChatGPT and it's going to give me everything I need. And then now I don't have to worry about it. Like it's off my plate. ChatGPT did it for me.
Mm,
And it is very important to remember that AI isn't you. It doesn't have your experiences. It doesn't have your emotion, your feelings, your relationships, all of that. So it is extremely important that you add yourself back into whatever kind of content you're creating with it. It's what's going to make your content one stand out from everyone else's. Because there's going to be a lot of people that do take that ChatGPT prompt and just feed it into whatever, and it's just going to be kind of bland. But I truly think that tools like this can get us 80, 90% of the way there. But then
mhm,
you, as the human, need to bring it that other 10 to 20%.
mhm,
And I mean, I just think of how long it would take me to write a blog post pre AI to
mhm,
now. It's like I could spend all day writing a single blog post, and if I can get ChatGPT to get me 80% of the way there, and I can't spend an hour, hour and a half now to clean that up a little bit and make it more mine, now I'm just being lazy. I'm just
mhm.
being very lazy. I used to spend hours to get the blog post right, and now I just can't spend one. Like,
Right.
but
Yeah. And I think the other thing too about AI is like, yeah, I can do a lot of things now and a lot quicker, like blog posts or show notes or whatever, but you still need a human kind of telling it what to do or prompting it or
mm,
whatever. Though I guess if you created those custom, I don't know. I feel like there still has to be a human to some degree behind it. So maybe it's more like people might lose their jobs or jobs will just be shifting and changing a little bit. Like,
so I'll share this. This was actually I did a presentation about this specifically at the Empowered Podcasting event, and with that AI briefing podcast. This might scare some
mhm,
people, but it might. I think it's pretty. So, my goal was to have the podcast fully automated. Like I wanted to be able to like click a button and then have the show just like continue rolling. And I got pretty close to that. And I did it with a platform very similar to Zapier, if you're familiar with Zapier,
mhm.
but it's called Make, just make.com. And you essentially connect all of these apps together. So it's almost like when this happens, then do this. And then when this happens, do this. And I connected up a workflow where I go find an article, I find a news headline that I like, and then I add it to a board on Feedly, which is just it aggregates a bunch of blog posts and articles based on topics you like. So I say, I want this article. And then Make sends that content to either Perplexity or ChatGPT. And I have that set up on a prompt that says, turn this article into a part of a script for a podcast episode. And then after I've compiled like 2 to 3 headlines for my episode, that's usually how many I do in my episode, then take all of those script pieces and send that to 11 labs to generate the audio. And then simultaneously send that script back to ChatGPT and generate a title for the show. And then send it to ChatGPT and generate show notes for my show. And I'm very specific with how I do it. And then ultimately it just grabs all that information, it creates the MP3, it creates the title, it creates the show notes with the sources, and then throws it into a Google Drive. And then the only part that I haven't been able to automate yet is like the actual publishing of the episode. So I wake up in the morning, I go grab the MP3, upload it to YouTube, upload it to Spotify, grab the show notes or the episode descriptions, paste those into the platforms, hit publish, and then it's done.
Mhm.
So all of that is kicked off by just saying, I like this article. And then it does everything else.
Oh,
But my goal with that, and the reason I wanted to do it, was because I realized that people aren't going to necessarily create an AI podcast. But if I can automate every piece of the podcasting process, that could in turn help podcasters who have 9 to 5 jobs. Like podcasting is more of a hobby because we know podcasting takes a lot of time.
mhm.
Like, it can be a full-time job if you make it a full-time job. So if I can find where podcasting can be automated, then other podcasters can start utilizing it and say, I need to be involved in this piece of the process, but I could automate this part of it for me.
Mm.
And now you're getting more efficient, more streamlined. You're being able to spend more time marketing the show, finding guests for your podcast, like doing things that truly matter for the show, as opposed to kind of being stuck in like an endless editing loop where as soon as you finish editing an episode, you publish it and have to turn around and start editing the next episode because it took so long to get it done. So that's kind of the goal behind why I did that. But I mean, it was just what you were talking about kind of sparked that. Like it's very close to being kind of like a push the button and go kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe at some point it will be like that, but it's like you still need, so maybe the future is people stringing all these softwares and stuff together, like making the sequence. You still need probably someone to do that, but who knows? Maybe they'll create an AI that can do that. Who knows?
That's getting close too, which we don't have enough time to talk about it. I
Yeah,
know, but yeah,
yeah. Oh
we could
man.
probably go another hour on that just a
Yeah.
topic alone.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. And so people can learn more. What's the best website for people to go to learn more about you?
I would say nextgenpodcaster.com.
Okay. That's what
That'd
I
pro-
was thinking, but
Yep, that would be the best one. And then if you have questions about AI or using it in your podcast or whatever, I'm usually best reachable on Instagram.
okay.
So at 95free, all spelled out. I know we're connected on there, but yeah, just shoot me a DM. I'm happy
Okay.
to answer any questions that you guys have. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing me on. Like, hey, when you said you wanted me to come on and talk AI, I was like, yeah, talking about AI is what I like to do. So thank you.